Assalamu alaikum, ladies. Alhamdulillah, I finally did it. I actually wrote a book. It's dedicated to all the single Muslim mothers out there, hence the name How to Be a Single Muslim Mum. Inshallah, it's available as an ebook, paperback, and it will be available as an audio. Alhamdulillah. Barakallahu feekum, sisters, for the support. Check out the link in the description to get yours. The Niqabi Diaries, Season 4. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu salam ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode, Season 4 of the Niqabi Diaries. Alhamdulillah. We're coming to the end of the season actually now. So we have with us a sister who's going to share her story, her journey to the Niqab, inshallah, for our sister. Could you please introduce yourself for the listeners and tell us a little bit about what you do, inshallah?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. My name's Sabrina, and at the moment I've just ventured into Instagram coaching for faceless brands, whether it's business or personal branding. And of course, with us being Niqabi women, it's important to show up, but also know the limits. And also, with Instagram, such a visual place, very aesthetic place, that kind of thing, is doing it effectively while still keeping to your values. So that's where both my, I guess, the religious side of things and plus my enjoyment with everything creative, like they've just combined, and I've branched into this now.
Okay, alhamdulillah, mashallah. Inshallah, we'll talk a little about that later on. So could you give us some background, about your Islamic background, information about your Islamic background, inshallah? Are you a revert, born Muslim? How did you grow up?
Yeah, so I am born and raised Muslim. I'm Bangladeshi, and I actually was born in Plymouth. So it's a very white area. I only experienced very short time of my life there, but my siblings grew up there a fair amount. But we were mainly raised in Portsmouth, and that's, again, very white area. It's become a bit more diverse now, but I've always been surrounded by non-Muslims. And I didn't struggle in terms of like deen too much once I fully embraced it. But I think there was disconnect growing up because of culture and even my parents' ignorance and stuff when it came to Islam. They did their best in terms of trying to get us to pray and stuff. But it's been a learning for all of us as a family. And my parents came to the UK quite young as well, in their teens. So for them, it was like culture shock, trying to keep to their culture and religion, but also mixing with a lot of non-Muslims as well. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey growing up in this sort of area.
Okay, mashallah, that's really interesting. I can relate to growing up with a lot of white people, because I think where I lived, definitely that was my experience as well. So how, did you grow up wearing the hijab at all? And you mentioned that, it was a journey for your parents also, and they obviously had their, journey going through, kind of implementing Islam and balancing the culture and, still practicing, even though being kind of, I suppose, influenced by outsiders, by another community of people, which are not Muslim. And which a lot of us, have this kind of experience when we live in Western countries, especially. So, did you grow up wearing the hijab? And if not, like, how did you, when was your first time wearing it? And what was your experience?
I actually didn't grow up wearing hijab. I did dabble in it in my teens, like around 14, 15. I tried wearing it like during Ramadan and stuff like that. I think I got quite interested in learning about deen in my teens because my sister, who she was very sort of like modern, into her music, fashion. She lived in London. She was like living the life, right? And all of a sudden she just abandoned all of that and she embraced Islam wholeheartedly. Like, again, we were born Muslim, but we were raised in a way like, pray, fast, respect your elders, that kind of thing, and that's about it. We didn't know much more than that. And when she began learning about Deen, she literally was like, I'm going to forget everything I've ever learned and start from scratch. And she's literally started picking up the book of Hadith and Quran again and trying to go to classes and all this kind of stuff. And she was my biggest inspiration at the time, because she was probably in her early 20s, or sorry, mid 20s then, and I was in my early teens. Yeah, so witnessing her journey and seeing how much she abandoned and how much happier she was really like lit something up in me. But I still had a very up and down time in my teenage years in terms of drawing closer to Islam. I think it was only by the time I was, 17. I was just turning 18, and my dad planned a trip for Umrah as a family. And I have to admit, at that time, I was so like not with it in terms of Deen. I hadn't abandoned it or anything like that, but I wasn't like so crazy about getting closer to Islam. And that trip, it's like, I don't know what happened, just being there. I don't even know what was going through my mind, but it was like a switch was literally just turned on in me. And all of a sudden, my heart softened, and I immediately, like, it's like the fitra just came through. Like, I didn't want to listen to music anymore. I wanted to cover up. I felt so much happier. I felt free just wearing hijab and like abaya at the time, that as soon as I came back, and I think I took the hijab off and I wore like a maxi dress, which I used to do a lot anyway, to still dressed modestly. I felt naked. And from that point, like I think it was the next day, like 2 days after I came back from Saudi, I was just like to my sister, no, I'm gonna have to wear hijab. Like I don't want to not wear it. I can't see myself not wearing it anymore. And I did it. So I've got two sisters. The eldest one who already had started practicing Deen, and then there's one in between us, and she was kind of similar to me. So once she saw me put hijab on, she was like, okay, I'm going to do it too. And we haven't turned back since, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, Allah Mubarak. That's amazing, sister. That's really amazing, alhamdulillah. It's nice that, you know, it's an amazing experience. I think I haven't been for Umrah myself, but just the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really blessed all of you with being able to go. And then on top of that, that kind of connection that you did establish there, you know, with him, that you felt that, you know, you just wanted to really like practice your religion properly. There's some people, subhanAllah, they have the money to go for Umrah or Hajj, and they still don't, it still doesn't change them, subhanAllah. So this is one of Allah's great blessings, subhanAllah, that, you know, you've experienced that. Alhamdulillah, you was really truly guided back to his deen, you know, through that through that trip,
Like,
subhanAllah. So
it
it's a
still
really
gives
great
me
blessing.
chills.
Yeah, subhanAllah, subhanAllah. And to think as well that you felt naked once putting a maxi dress on. I think like for some people listening, they might feel that's like even an extreme way to think, but I feel the same way. Like, and I think when you've worn an abaya or even the jilbab, and then you just like, and then you go outside without wearing those things, even if you are completely covered, you do feel like that, you know, you do feel this sense of being exposed. And I don't know what it is. I think perhaps it's because you I don't know, like it's just like, I don't know, I think it's like a almost like a dent in identity. I don't know what it maybe, I don't know if that makes sense to say it like that, but it's like, you know, wearing an abaya or wearing the jilbab, it's like it's obvious that you're like a Muslim woman. And I'm not saying that the sisters who wear their maxi dresses with a hijab, it's not obvious, but I think once you've worn like the other clothes and then you go back to wearing more Western kind of clothes and stuff like that, even if it is, you know, maybe fulfilling the conditions to some extent, the feeling is different, you know, the feeling is really different, subhanAllah. I think that I think there's an intention or the level of hayat and intention that goes with wearing the jilbab or abaya, that it makes you, you know, I don't know, feel that sense of hayat, that level of hayat, that you're, you know, really
I don't know, just mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah,
I suppose
definitely.
it's the fashion element. Maybe it's the element of fashion, you know, because obviously there's other things are maybe seen as more fashionable and more widely accepted. So you
You
feel
know
that,
what?
you know, you're still trendy, isn't it? But
Yeah,
when you take away that because of, you know, of deciding to adhere to like the like full hijab, like wearing your or a abaya or whatever, you're stripping away the fashion. You know, it's like you're not going with the fashion side of things, and
exactly. And
yeah,
you know what?
subhanallah.
That was my turning point as well. Because before going to Umrah and stuff like that, I would say between the years of like 16 and 19, like when I was in college, I was like so into fashion. Like I would rock up at London Fashion Weekend and all that stuff. I would do my little blogging and whatnot. But I I always wanted to be different. And that's essentially like fashion is following trends, but it's also being different and trying to stand out, right? But then when I decided to take on wearing hijab, abaya, jilbab, all that kind of stuff, I felt the most like connected with myself, unique, even though I'm Muslim and I'm identifying as a Muslim broadly by my appearance. I felt the most me, and I felt like I'm not part of society and I don't have to fit in with society and all that stuff. I felt free properly. Um, so yes, there's that element of haya, and definitely that there's there's a protected feeling when you wear slightly looser clothes. There's a comfort. There's a feeling of like you don't have to think too much. And that's where the whole fashion side comes in. Like you're not having to follow up with trends all the time. Yeah, even amongst the Muslim world of things, there's obviously fashion and certain looks and that kind of thing too. Um, but essentially, that you don't have to stick to anything. Um, if you like wearing your black, you wear your black. If you like wearing pairing colors and whatnot, then you can do that too. It's no big deal. And I found that so like liberating. I remember actually speaking to one of my non-Muslim ex-colleagues, and when she asked me about hijab, that's exactly pretty much the answer I gave her. I was like, I feel the most free right now. I don't have to keep up with trends. I don't have to worry about my hair. Not that we don't give a, you know, about self care or anything. It's just the freedom of I don't have to do this today, or I can just wear the same thing that I wore 2 days ago, and it doesn't matter because most of my clothes look similar. It's just a different color.
Yeah,
um,
definitely. And
yeah,
that's so freeing, isn't it? When you know that, like,
absolutely.
subhanallah, when you know you can just put the same clothes on every day and go outside.
Yeah,
Because,
I
like,
love
I
it.
don't know, like the abaya or when you if you wear abaya or jibab, it's like a coat, isn't it? That's how I see
Yeah,
it, you know. So,
exactly.
and you know, you don't not like most people, you're not going to wear a different coat every single day of the week. You just put your coat on and you go, and that's it. Like, halas. So that's
Yeah,
how I see it. It's like it just makes life so much more easy. I don't have to worry about what I've got on underneath, what I'm wearing at home during the day. You just put that on top when you're going outside, and it's just like it's fine. That's like, and it literally is like a uniform. I really feel like that, you know,
yeah,
and
definitely.
it's just so freeing. SubhanAllah.
It's funny though, because it makes you feel part of the sisterhood, but then it also makes you feel like you stand out. And it's funny because I think it was a sister you spoke to recently as well, but uh, it was basically around the topic of niqab and how it takes, you know, people assume it's about like you're oppressed or you know you're being made to do it and whatnot, but really it's like a protest. I see it as a protest to society, and you know, I don't have to look a certain way or you don't have to see me for me to still be able to do things and exist, you know? Um, so yeah, obviously that's moving on to niqab as well, but yeah, this is generally the way I see the way Muslim women dress. We are very brave and we are strong for doing it. It takes strength to do it. Sometimes Allah makes it very easy, but for many people, it's a journey and it's fighting and it's soldiering through all the difficulties and waswas and all of that stuff too. So and I'm sure many other sisters said the same thing, but we need to give first thanks to Allah, but also props to ourselves for persevering. In the times that we live in, it's so difficult. You're constantly being thrown into like boxes of beauty standards, even in our marriages and relationships. As much as people assume that the overall outlook on Muslim woman is as the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba saw it, we're still influenced by society. And it's it takes a lot to stay firm to what the foundations are of what a valuable woman or a man is. I'm really digressing.
No, really, like what you said makes so much sense, subhanAllah, and it's true because, I'm just thinking about, you coming to this point at that time in your life when you could have been doing anything and the dunya is literally screaming at you, calling you to like just go and enjoy like all it has to offer. And, like I became Muslim when I was about 18. So, and that's, from what you said, that's around the time that you decided that you was going to wear the hijab full time and properly, and for your sisters as well. So what I wanted to ask you actually is like, how did that, you mentioned you grew up in a white area. So how did that change in your family, you and your sisters? Like, how did that affect your day-to-day life, like going about and, was you going to college and things like that, mixing in the, in the community that you grew up in? How did that change, or what impact did it have on that?
Do you know what? I think the time that I started wearing hijab, thankfully, it fell at a time where I had decided to go to uni and I hated it because all they kept pushing towards us is go to this freshers party. There's this event going on at a club. Like you weren't getting through a lecture without them dropping some sort of, clubbing or bar thing or whatever. And I was like, is this what uni's really about? I hated it. And I just wasn't feeling it at all. And that was at a time where I still wasn't wearing hijab yet. I was just dressing like whatever. Mind you, I always wanted to cover certain areas. I always dressed it fairly modestly, even back then. But yeah, I just I had enough. So at that time, I wasn't working, I wasn't studying, and I guess that's what also made the transition easier because I didn't have to think about what will so and so say. Whereas my sister, though she decided to make the change at the same time as me, she was already in a career, like in a job for quite a while, and they knew her to be a certain way. So when she suddenly wore hijab, she had to deal with all of that, like, oh, what's made you wear it now, and what's changed, and all this kind of conversation. Whereas for me, it wasn't so much that; it was more the case of if I bumped into old friends, or if I was just catching up with friends or whatever, a lot of which were not Muslim, I'd just be like, oh yeah, I wear this now, that kind of thing. And it wasn't really a big deal because there were other people in the community, they already wore hijab and stuff. It wasn't like they were ignorant of it. I think that's one thing, like growing up, going to school here, and it's something that actually my ex-husband used to ask me about because he grew up around a lot of Muslims and Asians and blacks and that kind of thing. But I was predominantly around a lot of white-skinned people and the odd Chinese or Filipino or like black person or something like that. But majority was still white. So yeah, even he would ask me, like, what kind of conversations did you have with them? What do you even talk about? Because their lives are so different and all this kind of stuff. And I'd be like, it's the same things. You talk about family, you talk about, some emotional issues or something. Like there's nothing that different. You might not talk about deen. You might not talk about that, really nice curry you had the other day from that place or whatever. But in this day and age, you probably will do, to be fair. So yeah, like, alhamdulillah, back then, even though I wasn't practicing teenager and whatnot, my friends then, they still knew, like, Sabrina's Muslim, Sabrina's Bangladeshi, she's not going to do this thing. And they would purposely like we'd have meetups and stuff. We'd have a picnic down the park or a barbecue or whatever. I'll be involved in that, and then afterwards they'll be like, okay, we're gonna go for drinks now, and I'll be on my way home, that kind of thing. They would purposely like do things that would include me, and then have their own time to enjoy like what they want to enjoy afterwards. And I would never feel like I had to join in, and because they made space for me, basically, they just knew what the boundaries were.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. And I didn't have to even
Alhamdulillah.
tell them. Alhamdulillah, they were just
yeah,
aware.
that's really nice.
Yeah.
That's nice, and to be honest, that shows how Muslims are integrating and have always been integrated into like the Western cultures that they've lived in, you know. And it's not difficult, you know. You don't have to be the same as somebody or be doing the same as everybody else in order to mix with them, you know. That's and
Yeah,
I
for
just I think
sure.
that's like it's such a beautiful example, you know. And your friends haven't, like, you know, their lives haven't I don't know. I would say they definitely, their lives have not been negatively affected by knowing you, because even if, for example, they gave up what they wanted to do, that is still something, you know. If it's the haram that they're giving up, then that's something positive, you know. So, and the
Yeah, for
reality is,
sure.
and at the same time, your practice or your cultural norms have not stopped them from doing what they see as their cultural norms and their rights, you know, their rights to do those particular things, even if they are haram. So, you know, and but you haven't had to be involved in that,
Yeah,
alhamdulillah. So
for
it's
sure.
just so it shows that it's so easy just to just, you know, you just live and do other, you know, do different things, like you have your separate lives that you,
Yeah,
because you
you
are
just stay in
individual,
your
you know, you
lane.
don't have to
But
copy. Exactly.
exactly, you
Yes,
just stay in your lane, and
subhanallah.
ultimately, like, you connect as people, as individuals. You're not always connecting
Exactly.
on the basis of deen. Sometimes it's for mutual benefit or whatever it might be. Like, there might just be a business thing. It might be someone sincerely needs advice. They know that you're trustworthy. You might be Muslim. They might not know anything about else, like your culture and that kind of thing, but they just know you and they know that they can trust you. Like, I'd have that a lot at work. I used to work in a job center, and I would have people pouring their hearts down over the phone or in person and that kind of thing. And they didn't know me. They can see I'm visibly Muslim. But, you know, for one reason or another, we connected. And that's the thing. I think sometimes as Muslims, we put the barrier there before it's even there. We come in to an environment thinking, I'm different, they're not going to like me, and that sets the tone, you know. Whereas
Absolutely, absolutely. I definitely agree with that.
if you
It's
come
having a
in
negative
embracing
mindset.
that you're Muslim, embracing that you're still human, embracing that we all experience the same stuff, your mindset completely changes, and you don't give a donkeys about what people think anymore after that. Because ultimately, what you're doing is for Allah, and you fear Allah, and you want to keep to your boundaries, but that doesn't stop you from being a person. Do you know what I mean? Like, relating to people in a
Definitely.
worldly sense. Like, we all have to brush our teeth.
Yeah,
We all
on a
have to
human
like,
level.
yeah. Like, even the other day, I walked down the street, especially like after all the riot palaver happened. I was in London for that time, and now I've come back to Portsmouth again. Wore my niqab, and I just thought, if anyone says anything, I'll just tell them life's too short. Worry about other stuff, like not this, you know. Life is too short for you to be complaining about this, like about me and my niqab or whatever. Just focus on other things. I'm sure you've got other stuff to think about. Like, I would just approach it like that, because it's too short. We're on our mission, they're on theirs, but there's other things we can really be focusing on as well.
Absolutely. So on that note, you know, you mentioned the word barrier there. So would you describe the niqab as being a barrier, and if so, which sense?
The only literal barrier that I found in my life was it's the expected stuff, like ID issues and whatnot. Yeah, you just flip your niqab up for a few seconds and they check it and you put it back down. But I used to work, like I was a civil servant. I used to have to go to the courts a lot, and that is one place where I couldn't wear it at all. because of identity issues and whatnot. And I did find that hard because I would wear niqab out and about after work, but then I couldn't wear it at work. Not in the office. The office was fine. It was just certain environments that I couldn't wear it in. And again, that just came down to like regulatory stuff and whatnot. Was it annoying? It was a bit, but I also didn't feel like it was a massive compromise. I think it would be a struggle for sisters who are of the opinion that it's fard to cover your face. But then where there is one barrier in one place, we have so many other options. So don't look at where you can't do something, look at where you can. Like that's the attitude I have generally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you about finding your options and finding your space. Like if someone's got a disability and they can't access a certain area for whatever reason, yeah, there's laws and regulations in place, but they're not gonna, like, unless that thing changes at some point for them, there's no use having a big hoo-ha about it. In that immediate moment, you'll think, okay, if I can't go here, where can I go? And it's the same thing with niqab. That's the way I see it. It's like, if I can't do this thing, what can I do ultimately?
I think that's what they call thinking outside of the box, isn't it? It's the fun. They just have to look to whatever options you've got available, isn't it? Yeah, but
Yeah,
like I feel like since becoming a Muslim, like there was lots of things. I mean, it's not even just hijab related. Like when you give up, not practicing Islam for being a Muslim, like there's lots of things that you'll have to adjust in your life. You'll have to stop doing certain things that you might have been doing before, and you just look for the other options. Do you know what I mean? So I know for some revert sisters, I mean, that wasn't my experience, but in the case of food, for example, a lot of revert sisters come to Islam. They're accustomed to eating like bacon and pork and things like that. And when they come to Islam, they find alternative foods that taste better or halal. Anyways, do you know what I mean? So they can still make their maybe traditional foods, but they just use different meat to do it. SubhanAllah. So it's just thinking outside of the box and just being a little bit more creative about things. SubhanAllah. You mentioned work there. Where you said you had to go to the courts and things like that. Was that I think you said before you was working in Citizens Vice Bureau. So is that part of that job, or is it something else?
It was in the civil service. So I used to work for HM Revenue and Customs, and I was in the legal department.
Oh, right.
So the solicitor's office. And for a period of my job, I had to go to court every day, and that was like the Royal Courts of Justice. And what was the other court? High Court, basically. I had to go there pretty much every day. It would be a small portion of my day, but I couldn't wear it there. And I was it was just a compromise I had to make. And I just
so
half an hour of my entire day.
Right, okay. Yeah. That's interesting. So when I didn't even ask you, when exactly did you start wearing the niqab itself?
So it's been a very on-off journey with me, I have to admit. I initially started, I think it was back in 2014. And I was living in London at the time and working there. And that's when I started wearing niqab. And I was living around East London, but London, I feel like, personally for me, it doesn't matter what side of London you're in. People are just so in their own space. They're not even looking at you. Like, that's one thing I loved, because I would say even more back then, I was quite introverted. So even before wearing niqab, I loved London because I felt like I don't exist. Everyone's just busy doing their own thing. So then wearing niqab there and starting that journey felt even easier. And then I would say, I think it was around 2016, I moved back to my hometown, Portsmouth. And at that time, I was still wearing it on and off. My parents really didn't want me to, because they were worried about, people making comments of this and that. But I personally didn't really experience that. But I would kind of wear it like on and off, I would say, at that time. Mostly just to give my parents a bit of ease and for them not to worry about me so much when I'm outside. But then obviously COVID happened, and I was just like, I'm wearing it. Like, everyone's got a flipping mask on. Why the heck can I not wear this? They can't tell me off about it. They can't say anything about it. And I
Absolutely.
just, yeah. And so while I was still living in Portsmouth, I fully started wearing it then and carried on since, basically. The only times I really ever take it off is if I'm genuinely feeling unwell, because I do have like autoimmune condition, and there's times where I just can't cope with it. So yeah, I personally, although I wear niqab and I'm a big supporter of it, I do also believe, like, if you know you're not feeling well and you're of the opinion that it's sunnah, like, don't be so hard on yourself. So yeah, that's my approach personally.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, absolutely. Okay, so mashallah. So you know, it's interesting that you've had this experience working in a professional capacity wearing the niqab. And so
Alhamdulillah.
apart from obviously, like, you know, alhamdulillah, you mentioned that you don't see the niqab as being fards as well. So you have that, you take that flexibility when it comes to your job in spaces where, you know, they have to verify your identity, because obviously you're working in a professional, you've been working in, you know, what's
Yeah.
it, what do they call it? What's the word? I don't want to say, it's not professional that I'm looking for. The word, like, you know, like official places
Yeah.
where your
Yeah.
identity has to be verified consistently.
Yeah.
You know, was there any issues? Have you ever had any issues with people being niqab, or have you faced any kind of abuse from people for wearing the niqab at all?
Personally, I haven't. Funny enough, I think I had it more when I was just wearing hijab. Uh, when I was wearing hijab and abaya, I feel like in certain areas, thankfully not in my hometown so much, but I've worked in Southampton, and there's certain parts of Southampton that's known to be quite racist. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim, as long as you're not white skinned, you're gonna get a comment, basically. um, yeah, like main Southampton's fine, but it's you just, I think you just develop a bit of a thick skin. I think for me as well, like, I take into like consideration, and it comes to my mind the way that my parents would have experienced life here when they first moved over and stuff. Like, they were here at a time where racism was rife, and you know, you had your skinheads and all that kind of stuff, and we're not even witnessing like, not even like 100th of that kind of hostility now. And we're able to wear hijab, we're able to wear abaya, we're able to wear niqab, and we're still not experiencing that, even in the most whitest of areas. So I feel blessed personally, because I know my parents went through worse, and that's probably why they still have that slight fear mindset when it comes to us really like embracing dressing modestly and that kind of thing. They not so much anymore, but they did, like, while we were going through our journey. So yeah, I personally, like, haven't had too many bad experiences, and thankfully the times I did, it's just like someone driving past and shouting something at a window or something like that, and I just think, oh, that's very brave. I think the other thing I tend to come across is you get the odd person trying to correct you in something or make a point of something, thinking that you can't speak English, and then all of a sudden you start speaking better English than they do, and then they're like, oh. That's always
Yeah,
fun.
that's always enjoyable. I always find that really
I love
enjoyable to
that.
find them else. Like, they think that, you know, you're completely foreign and you don't even understand what they're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. I love it so much. Sometimes I think I seek those opportunities. I don't know why. But yeah, there's that. But I have to say, like, around here, like where I live, it's quite mixed. The older gen, like I'm talking 70s and above, they're super friendly. like really friendly. Even with niqab, they'll still be like hi, or they'll start thinking you're Arab and they'll be like, oh shukran, and all this stuff, and you're like, oh, you're really cultured. It's really sweet. But I would say again, it's like my parents' generation, people between like say 50 and 70, they're the ones that can be a bit hit and miss, and they're the ones you'll just find in the pub basically, and you just stay out their way and they stay out of yours too. But again, it's not the majority, it's certain pockets of areas. And that's the thing, if you know you're going to face some like hostility in a certain area, just move away or stay away, you know, like it's a choice at the end of the day. You don't, like, unless you have no way of escaping that area or you have to pass through, then that's different. You know, you just place your trust in Allah and do your adhkar and, you know, everything you can. But ultimately, what's going to come to you will come to you anyway. And that's just my general approach in life, like not to worry, take your precautions, be prepared, but don't live in a state of fear and worry about, you know, the reactions of the environment or the people around you. More often than not, they're not even thinking about you.
So, Panla, I wanted to ask you, sister, you know, in light of what you said just now, you know, how has it been with the riots that they've been having in the UK recently? I mean, did that change your kind of perspective a little bit, or make you feel more precautious in the area that you was living in, since it is like predominantly, you know, whites, as you were saying?
Yeah, so when that all kicked off, thankfully I was in London at the time, and I was like in East London, like the heart of where all the Muslims are, in the East London Masjid. So there was lots of police and stuff around there. We didn't have any issues, alhamdulillah. But coming back to Portsmouth, for myself, I didn't worry so much. But I always, like being a mum to a little girl, or whether it's a girl or a boy, doesn't make a difference. But being a mother and having like this defenseless child, that's the only worry that I would have. Like if anyone did anything to her, how would I react? That kind of thing. Like what is going to be my response? How will I protect her? And again, like you do have to put things in place or have a bit of a game plan when you leave the house, for sure. That goes with any day. Like forget the riots, there's so much danger outside, but if we just focus on having solutions to problems in any day when we go out, whatever the situation might be, like that's generally how I see it. It's not a certain situation, but knowing that if there's any type of like attack or harm, or like if a car suddenly comes crashing into you or whatever, like what will you do as a mum to protect your children and yourself? Like that's automatically comes in my head. I know like some sisters have suggested and been at that time they were just saying, you know, carry hairspray and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, for me, I think my 100% thing is just placing my trust in Allah. Like I leave the house, saying my du'as, you know, doing my adhkar and everything. Like, and I just think, why am I worrying after that? Like I shouldn't. Like if we leave the house saying Bismillahi tawakkaltu ala Allah, are we actually embracing that? You know what I mean? Like that's what I hold in my heart when I leave outside and to go outside and stuff. That's my main protection. And I again, like
Absolutely.
Portsmouth,
When these trials happen to us, it's a good reminder to us that, you know, our trust should be in Allah, you know, first and foremost, you know, more than anything else, subhanAllah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, you know, he's the one that's most aware and has power over those people that you think will harm you. He's the one that is in control of that. And if something is going to come your way, it's going to come your way regardless, and it's a test. So there's no use living in fear. The ultimate answer is always just seeking him and relying upon him.
Alhamdulillah. So what else did I want to ask you? Have you had any kind of experiences traveling with the niqab at all? And if so, what was that like?
No problems. Again, it's the same protocol. Just flip it up for a few seconds, show your face, and you're done, kind of thing. But I have mostly traveled to Muslim countries anyway, and that's probably why. Funny enough, I was considering visiting like Greece or something one day, and that is one time where I've actually thought, actually, I wonder what they'd respond to a Niqabi like over there. So yeah. So until I've experienced going to a non-Muslim country with a niqab on, I can't really say.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask you is about your social media presence and what prompted you to start the business that you're doing now and building that brand.
Well, initially, it was just to find some way to make money while working from home. Like at the time, I was still married. I was with my little one. We had a little studio place. So it was literally a bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, like no living room, nowhere to really work privately, basically. And like trying to find a traditional like job or even a working from home job was really challenging because I didn't have the support in place, like anyone to look after my daughter, and I didn't have the room to be able to work, where there's no disruptions or anything like that too. So then I was on a mission, like, okay, I need to learn something. I need to like find a way to create my own service where I'm just my own boss and I can work flexibly and all that kind of stuff. And I don't have to worry about showing my face. And then most people look at social media and they think, okay, I need to show my face. But I'm quite stubborn. I'm quite, I like a challenge. And I basically said to myself, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to basically, because I think the beginning part of it was I found people doing like that whole faceless digital marketing thing, right? Stuck a toe in there, didn't really resonate with it myself, but I saw that, okay, faceless is becoming a thing, not just to Muslims, it's also non-Muslims as well. There's plenty of non-Muslims that don't want to be face forward. And that kind of broadens the scope a bit. But first and foremost, it's our Muslim sisters. So many are talented, so many have so much knowledge that they can bring and coach people and help people in many ways, and they just don't want to show their face. Like a lot of them are niqabi, some aren't. Some people just don't want to have to be in front of the camera or anything like that. They want to maintain some privacy. I've even had brothers interested in this type of like faceless branding because they don't want to be in front of the camera either, but they want to showcase their knowledge and their work and they just can't figure out how to do it. So that's all of that basically inspired me to try and create a coaching system and figure out strategies for our brothers and sisters and anyone who needs it, to create like a faceless personal and business brand online, on Instagram, be able to showcase all your skills, what you have to offer, inject your personality, because a lot of people end up using like, and there's nothing wrong with it because it makes easy content. They use like stock content and videos and stuff like that, but you don't really connect with the person, and that does make it hard to convert into sales or clients. So it's just finding the right balance of everything and maintaining your modesty at the same time as well, and your principles and values. And I thought that was really missing in this space. There are other Muslim coaches and strategists and stuff for Instagram, but I haven't found someone who's doing it without showing their face. They're all showing their face in some way or another. For me as well, I'm of the opinion where photography is classed as picture making as well. So that's my view. So on top of that, I have those people that don't want to use pictures at all in their social media, and I'm one of those as well. And then also people that don't want to use nasheeds. So yeah, it's about it sounds quite niche, but I feel like the more niche it is and being able to be successful in that challenge is what drives me as well. Like, I know we can do it. It's for the sake of Allah, so there's going to be a way. Yeah, so my driving force is a number of things. So between me starting and now, I have gone through a divorce, single mum now. I've moved back in with my family, but I'm looking to move into my own place with my daughter in the near future, inshallah. So it's also me having an income to be able to raise my daughter. I still have high ambition of trying to homeschool her and everything too, so I need that flexibility. And just knowing that, inshallah, I can help people maintain their haya, just as I'm trying to do as well, and make money online. Like, online is one of the best ways to make money these days. There's so much opportunity out there, and why aren't we embracing it? Like, especially as women in the economy that we're in right now, we need to find a way ultimately.
100% agree, sister. SubhanAllah. You mentioned so many things there, and especially I like the fact that you know, highlighted the very important points that I think a lot of Muslims miss, unfortunately, and it saddens me, because I think that, you know, sometimes as Muslims we lack creativity, and I think it comes back to what you were saying before about when we kind of have this negative mindset that we assume that we won't be able to do something or won't be able to thrive in a certain space because we're Muslim, and by just being Muslim and, you know, having that Muslim identity. And subhanAllah, like, I see there's so many faceless brands now, and even for example, YouTube's another thing. You know, the faceless YouTubers, for example, even doing vlogs, they do like daily vlogs and things like that without even showing their faces at all. And these are non-Muslims, you know, and they take time to do that. And there's big people who make videos without any music, for example, whatsoever. They don't put any music. They just use what they call ASMR. They call SubhanAllah. So there's like all these different types, and that's a trending thing, you know. It's very popular. That, you know, because I see sometimes some videos on YouTube, and like I'm into crafts and things like that. So sometimes I watch some videos people doing sewing or something like that, or other crafts, and they'll put really stupid background music, and a lot of people in the comments will be like, "Oh, just turn the music off. Why do you have to add this music?" And these are non-Muslims making these comments because it's actually so annoying to listen to them. And the majority, I mean, I listen to those videos on mute because it's just like the person's not talking most of the time, so it's like, why do I need to, like, I don't even need to have the volume on. So like, you don't have to put this weird background music. I just don't understand the concept, to be honest. And people and people use these trending different musics for their videos, and you see that across different types of what do we call it, different themes or different genre you know, videos, you know, whether it's travel or, you know, cooking or any other type, that, you know, that you'll hear the same kind of music that people are using across. So it's that people think that they have to do these things in order to, you know, have, you know,
make sense.
good content. Exactly. And the thing is, it doesn't contribute to the actual content itself. Is like, if you've got good content, you don't need any music. You literally don't, because people aren't coming to watch your content or to listen to it because of the background music. They don't. And sometimes the background music isn't even in the background. It's just so loud you can barely hear the people talking sometimes. And I think that's just so ridiculous, you know. SubhanAllah. So it's like, it takes away from the content sometimes.
Exactly. I think what makes me really sad is seeing how many of our Muslims are also running with the trending audio stuff as well. May Allah reward those that are trying to make the intentions of avoiding it. You know, you see some of our brothers and sisters, they're trying to find that funny little just spoken word voice audio, and it might be trending, and it takes hard work to find those. Trust me, like, I try and do it myself. It's hard. But I don't even want to make it a thing about the audio, because you hit the nail on the head when you said it's about the content. It's not about the sound. And sometimes a lot of our sisters as well, and I know it's coming from a place of even deen too, like, we can be quite hesitant in terms of using our own voice. But there are ways these days. I know not everyone's a fan of AI. You don't always have to use the AI voice. You might even be a bit freaked out about doing like a AI version of your voice as well. But if that means not having to come up and speak yourself each time, and that's not what you're comfortable with, embrace it, harness it, try it out, see how it works.
Exactly.
You know,
We've got so many options now, subhanAllah. There's just so many ways to be
exactly.
creative. And,
For sure.
still, be well in the bounds of Islam, subhanAllah. Like, literally, we've got so many options open to us, but we just need to have that creativity. And, like, what came to my mind, actually, there was a brother that I was following before. I can't remember. I haven't seen him online for a while, but I don't know, because I'm not on social media that much. But his name is Talha Aam, I think.
All right.
And his brand was like completely faceless, and he grew his account really big. But he was doing like a Muslim self-development, help thing. So, and it was really, really good, because his theme was like this it was like a black theme that he had with white writing. It was really good. And I noticed he started doing even videos and stuff like that, the reels and everything, but he would do a reel, but it was completely black. So you just hear his voice, and you just see like a black screen, but you just hear his voice. And lots of people used to tune in and listen to him, subhanAllah. I don't know if he's still doing his stuff, because I haven't, as I said, being really active on social media so much to check, see what he's doing. And, sometimes you can be following somebody and then you just don't see their content, even though you're following them.
Yeah.
But, I stuff really impressive,
This is why,
as a Muslim, especially because he was showing that you can be completely faceless, yet you can still have a very strong identity and really good and strong content and a strong brand online as a Muslim.
Yeah, it's a funny point you made about following people and not seeing their content, because they just get drowned out by the algorithm. And that's why I made a reel recently about switching your Instagram feed over to the chronological order, so that you see all the posts as they come in, like it used to be back in the day. Like, as soon as someone posts, you'll see like it going from the person who posted in the last 5 minutes up to the next hour, that kind of thing. So everyone gets seen, and I'm so glad that preacher's there. So yeah, perhaps he is still posting and you're just not seeing it, but you'll be able to see it that way.
Yeah, subhanAllah. So yeah, like, I wanted to talk to you about a lot of other things, actually, especially even like the single mum element. And it's nice that you, alhamdulillah, have been able to navigate yourself in regards to like work and things like that, alhamdulillah. But I wanted to ask you, for somebody who's been through different stages of hijab themselves, and even within the niqab, you've had experiences in a professional capacity wearing the niqab. Like, what advice would you give to those sisters who, they feel they would love to wear the niqab, but they're also having these kind of challenges, internally, with regards to how they would be seen, for example, in public, and like that, going through that change of how, when you start wearing different clothes, basically, and really kind of standing out as a Muslim and expressing yourself as a Muslim, Islamically, by, wearing the niqab, especially, what kind of advice would you give to those kind of sisters?
I would say, well, is this mainly for niqab, yeah? Or hijab and niqab? Sorry.
Yeah, niqab specifically. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean,
Yeah.
hijab obviously could be included as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, like, obviously once you're in this stage of hijab, like, you've overcome a lot of battles as it is. In terms of niqab, I think, as I've already spoken about, my personal approach was quite flexible, and I think that is what helped me to be really firm in it, because I felt like, oh, the times I'm wearing niqab, I really enjoy it, or the more you do it, the more you're realizing that actually it's not really making that much difference in the environment around me. Like, I'm still getting on with my day. If you are of the view that it's sunnah, then baby steps. I personally don't see anything wrong with baby steps. I think sometimes, again, we live in the mindset of like, oh, but people are going to see me wear it one day and not the other day, and all this stuff, and you get into this overthinking mode. But it's not about people, it's about you warming yourself up to it and embracing it. So yeah, like, even to this day, if I'm out there and I'm trying to eat a burger and it's really not happening with my niqab on, I'll flip it up, I'll enjoy my burger, and I'll flip it right back down again once I'm done. Like, it's I think sometimes when you think about it very rigidly, like once I put it on, I have to put it on and not ever taking it off. Again, just clarifying for people that believe it's sunnah. Just be easy with yourself a bit. And then eventually you will find that you love it so much because, again, you're fulfilling that sunnah. You feel more fulfilled within yourself because you're trying to emulate, you know, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, or, you know, Sahabiyat. And you, it's funny, like, as I was mentioning earlier, there's a bravery and a strength that comes with doing something like this, whether it's hijab or niqab. You start feeling a bit proud of yourself for taking that step because it is a lot of hard work. Like, don't be in a state of worrying about what other people think or whether they're judging you for it. Evaluate how you're feeling within yourself. Like, are you happy? Like, you picked that niqab up for a reason to wear it. Hold that reason in your heart, and yeah, just keep trying. Just keep trying until you feel like I can't actually depart from it. You know.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah, that's really beautiful advice, sister. Alhamdulillah, especially the bit about being baby steps and, you know, giving yourself a little bit of credit sometimes. I think sometimes we fail to appreciate the progress that we do make, even if it is little. And
Yeah,
that's
we're
one
all
of the good ways.
perfectionists at heart these days. Maybe it's
Yeah,
all our childhood issues.
yeah, it's upon that. And I think if we do give ourselves a little bit of credit sometimes, that can help to encourage us to even go further, you know, to do more, you know, instead of
Yeah,
like
for
beating ourselves
sure.
up thinking I'm not doing anything. So then what's the point, you know, kind of giving up. SubhanAllah. Finally, sister, I'll ask you, what does the niqab mean to you?
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on it earlier, but for me, it is a protest to the rest of society, and it's me unapologetically embracing that I'm Muslim. I'm a Muslim woman. I can do everything that I want to and need to do, and I can cover my face, and you don't have to know anything about me. That's like in my day-to-day life. I feel that way. Like, I feel empowered personally. Um, and then again, like, because I am working in the online space, it's a similar sort of thing. Like, I can do all of this, and I can be Muslim, and I can stick to the limits of Islam the best of my ability, and not compromise on my deen. And that is just like, it's the biggest expression of freedom. And like I said, I've always been a bit of a nonconformist, and I think wearing niqab really like scratches that itch of not wanting to fit in. Yeah, it's probably, I don't know how many answers you've had like that, but I think me,
Alhamdulillah. No,
funny enough,
I think
my sister
it
as
shares the
well,
same
is the
sentiment as
same.
many sisters, Alhamdulillah. But I love
Yeah,
that. I love that you said a non-conformist. I really love that, actually. That's the first time I've heard that. So yeah, non-conformist. I
really.
think that's yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly. You know, yeah, the
Yeah,
way you specifically phrase it like that, that literally just that's it. I think I can definitely you know, relate to that. I think that's been me the majority of my life. And I think for a lot of sisters that I
yeah,
speak to, they've had this kind of experience where they've always felt like, you know, a bit of an outsider anyways, you know, whether it comes to like,
yeah,
whether
for
in terms
sure.
of the one in their family sometimes, or just in the community that they've been raised in. So and when you kind of feel like you've always been an outsider, when you decide you want to follow Islam, it just, I don't know, you just go full force, isn't it? Like, you feel like there's
Yeah,
nothing to stop you
definitely.
because you're already not accepted. So what difference does it make? SubhanAllah.
Literally. Yeah, it's that for sure.
Alhamdulillah, sister. Jazakallah khair.
It is so empowering, and it is like, I know that word empowering gets overused a lot, but I sometimes I do just feel like I want to shout from the rooftops that I'm not shackled by what you guys are always trying to keep up with. Whether, doesn't matter who the person I'm talking to is. Like, this is me personally. I don't feel shackled by anything, and the fact that people do sometimes, even amongst our Muslims, they view it as limiting and a barrier and oppressive and all this kind of stuff, my mindset is the complete opposite, you know.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I think that's how we have to see things, and you know, as we've I think said a few times now in this conversation, just thinking outside of the box, or as some people might say, in a different box altogether, So alhamdulillah, I just want to thank you for your time today, sister. Mashallah, tabarakallah. You've taken time out for me to have this conversation. Alhamdulillah, it's been really nice, and it's just been nice to get to know you a little bit. And inshallah, I hope that we could do some other projects together going forward or something. I find you really inspiring and interesting. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, mashallah.
No, Jazakallah khair for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I wasn't expecting this.
I really love your content. I was really happy to come across your work. Yeah, I was really happy to come across your things, because I really love your content that you're putting out there. Barakallahu feekum, sister, for your time today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.